Slate ASMR. Before you sleep, don't forget to like and subscribe. For the best experience, use headphones and turn off a stable volume on YouTube. Now, please enjoy the video. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night. Wherever you are, I hope that you're alright. Welcome back, my beautiful people of the internet, to another Pale Slate ASMR video. Today, we will be diving into part 2 of the games I played in 2024. If you missed my last video, which you should absolutely check out right now by clicking on the link on your screen, I highlighted the 8 games I played the most throughout the year. So for this video, I wanted to try something a little different. You see, in 2024, I didn't just play the same games over and over again all year. I did occasionally take some breaks, and I discovered some really incredible indie gems, especially thanks to a little something called Xbox Game Pass. Now sure, Game Pass might have a terrible naming system and some questionable financials, and is very likely unsustainable for Microsoft in the long term. But right now, it provides a lot of incredible value for a pretty reasonable price. That is until they double the cost. But for now, until that happens, it's a great value. I mean, come on, a giant library of games to choose from for one monthly price. Sign me up. Now don't get me wrong, I like owning games. But if we're being honest, $40 to $60 is a lot of money to drop on something you aren't sure you might like. And thanks to Game Pass, I was able to explore a bunch of different games across a bunch of different styles that I never, ever would have thought of buying before. So today, I wanted to celebrate Game Pass a little bit and explore my 2024 Game Pass journey. While some of these games are certainly better than others, I can recommend all of them on some level. I really didn't play a bad game last year. Okay, so it actually wasn't all indies, because if I'm being honest, the game on Game Pass that was the most value for me, hands down, was Call of Duty Black Ops 6. When Microsoft bought Activision, my first hope was that Call of Duty would come to Game Pass and make my wallet much, much happier. I'm very much past the days where I would get every Call of Duty game at a midnight release party, but I do still like to check out each year's iteration. And now, Call of Duty is more financially accessible, and I'm really excited about that. Now, I know I've spent a lot of time talking about Call of Duty, both in that previous video, which you've watched, right? You better have watched it. But in that video, as well as for the last few months on the channel. So I won't go into much more detail here. There are too many actual indies to talk about. Which brings me to my second game, Botany Manor. Now, Botany Manor is a great example of a game that I wouldn't have checked out if it wasn't for Game Pass. I'm a sucker for a good puzzle game with a little bit of exploration, but I'm not a sucker for a bad deal. And with how easy it is to pick up a game engine these days, I'm very hesitant to check out random little indie games. You just never know what kind of quality you're going to get. As of recording this, Botany Manor is listed at $25. Imagine if I spent $25 and it was terrible. Like absolute total garbage in 2024. Wasting $25. is basically wasting an entire fast food meal. Picture this for one moment. It's lunchtime. You're hungry. You walk into a Wendy's just past rush hour, so no one's in line. You make a beeline for the counter, throwing your credit card at the cashier, desperate for a Baconator or a 4 for 4. You wait impatiently in the corner, crossed arms, tapping foot, stewing in an unresolved anger, until you finally, the person behind the counter calls your name. You prepare for the sweet relief of fats and carbohydrates filling your obnoxiously loud stomach. You take 5 steps towards the counter, grab your tray, and in a starvation-induced brain fog, you make one tiny error. You misjudged the mat on the ground, with, the one with the corner flipped up. And now it's too late to stop your foot from lifting up and letting go. Gravity takes over. You tumble forward as the tray with your delicious morsels sails off into the sunset, crashing into the ground. Devastating. Yeah, well, that's what it feels like to spend $25 for a broken, unplayable, asset-flip, boring, useless game whose only purpose in life is to steal your money and then leave you broken-hearted, cursing the name of a faceless developer who couldn't be bothered to spend more than 10 hours throwing together some piece of garbage and wasting your precious time that you can't get back as you march slowly towards your inevitable demise. I'm sorry. I'm ranting. Because that is not Botany Manor. Botany Manor is not an asset flip, unplayable, boring, useless game. Botany Manor is fantastic. Thank the Lord, my Wendy's is saved. Jack, get out of your box. Burger King, get ready to give it to me my way. Seriously though, why is fast food so expensive nowadays? If I wanted to pay for a Michelin star restaurant meal, I'd go to a Michelin star restaurant. Certainly wouldn't be going to McDonald's. They should make a Game Pass for fast food. I'd buy that. We could call it Dash Door or something. Dash Door, yeah. Why does that sound familiar? Anyway, what was I talking about? Right. Game Pass, Botany Manor. You are botanist Arabella Green, a well-traveled scientist who returns home to her Victorian mansion in the 1800s in order to complete her compendium of magical plants. As you explore the house, you gather various clues that enable you to create the perfect conditions for those magical plants to grow. It's a simple concept, but that's all it really needs. It's nothing crazy, nothing fancy. You run around for a few hours, learning more about Arabella and her backstory with every new section of the manor you unlock. And you put your brain to work, solving reasonably difficult little puzzles. Honestly, it's great for an afternoon on a rainy day. And the world that Whitethorn Games designed is absolutely beautiful. The house serves as a centerpiece for an engaging world, with lots of small details crafted in a traditional indie game 3D art style. A good mix of realism and fantasy that really just takes your breath away. And it's perpetually sunny too. Works well for that rainy day I mentioned earlier. Now, the controls can be a little clunky, and the walking speed can be a little slow, but the story made it all worth it in the end. Now, while it was short, it ultimately made for a great break from some of the other larger, more stressful games on my list. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, I'm looking at you. Wow, though. What a game. What a game. That's it. That's all I got. I'm kidding. But third-person action-adventure games are not usually my cup of blue milk. And I think it's because it's a genre that loves to lean into the difficulty curve like it's racing a motorcycle. And difficult games just honestly make me mad. I tried Dark Souls one time, and I nearly broke my controller on the first enemy. Everybody tells me, play Elden Ring, it's an awesome game. But if you thought that Kaizenat was bad, just wait until you see me try to time a dodge. But Star Wars has always had a special place in my heart. Now, I'm not a super fan or anything, but I do really love the world that George Lucas built. I mean, I grew up watching the original trilogy. I saw the prequels in theaters, and I even went to the midnight release for all three of the sequels. Plus, I experienced the golden era of Star Wars games. X-Wing, Battlefront, KOTOR, Republic Commando, you know, the classics. So I've got a soft spot for Star Wars games, especially quality ones, and I was interested to see what Respawn could do with the franchise. Now I can hear you out there in internet land. I know this game released in 2019. I know I'm a bit late to this party. When you have been gaming as long as I have, you tend to have a pretty large backlog. Plus, Game Pass and Steam sales don't help either. If I ever retire, maybe I'll finally be able to play all these stupid games on my, PlayStation 17. But I did get around to this one, finally, and I enjoyed every single minute of it. From the initial moments, it had me hooked. So 5 years after the Revenge of the Sith, Cal Kestis, a Jedi Padawan, is discovered hiding out on a salvage planet. Before the Empire can take him into custody, he's rescued by a ragtag group of rebels who set in motion a journey across the galaxy in an attempt to bring down the Empire. As you progress through the game, Cal slowly discovers what it means to be a Jedi, upgrading his abilities and powers all along the way. And as the player, you really feel like a Jedi. The lightsaber combat is fantastic. I know that lightsaber combat can be really frustrating in some games, especially when the movies and the TV shows always make it seem so smooth and so fluid. This game, they got it right. The combat system is extremely fluid. It allows you to quickly mash together combos, drawing from both lore-friendly fighting styles and a large variety of force powers. And the game is the right mix of linear and flexible, so it allows for deep exploration without being overwhelming. And it takes a lot of inspiration from classic Metroidvania games, so you have the ability to rediscover these old locations as you increase your skills and find new secrets and new treasures. The story, dialogue, and character development provide a lively mix of comedy and drama, with plenty of little nods throughout that will keep a Star Wars fan happy. Now, like any good third-person adventure game, the boss fights did have their share of frustrating moments, even while playing on the easiest difficulty. But the game never felt overwhelming. I always felt like I had a chance, especially once I understood how to create the build I wanted, allowing me to string together combos in a way that felt natural. Overall, it was an enjoyable experience that kept me occupied for a few weeks. And there was only one downside. Now, I have to play the sequel. Oh well. Throw it in the old backlog, I guess. Maybe I'll get to it eventually. And now for something completely different. Where Fallen Order was a massive 3D action-adventure game set in a vast science fiction universe, the big con is a 2D adventure point-and-click game set in the 90s. Unsurprisingly, they are not the same. Like my old man used to say, it's not the size of the game that matters, it's how you use it, or how you develop it. Rather, how they develop it, the developers, because I'm not developing games. At least, not to my knowledge. Wait, what if I was developing games this whole time and didn't know? Honestly, wouldn't I even have the time? developing games would be kind of cool though. And you know what else is cool? Pickpocketing people. Well, not in real life. In 2D point-and-click adventure games set in the 90s, called The Big Con. Because that's what this game is all about. Pickpocketing people in an epic quest to save your mom's video store from loan sharks. You explore, you talk to people, you do their side quests, and then you use tricks to steal their money. Once you have enough money, you move on to the next level. It's a fun, straightforward concept that's wrapped in the nostalgia of classic 90s PC games. The story and gameplay mechanics are basic, sure, but it's got that campy 90s style that is still so charming. And all sorts of low doses of comedy scattered throughout that kept me entertained the whole time. Plus, I love the design choices and color palette they used to reimagine that over-the-top polka dot neon pop grunge that is so iconic. All in all, The Big Con wasn't the most memorable game I played this year, but it certainly stole a few hours away from me. And honestly, the whole video store setting just made me nostalgic for renting games at Blockbuster with my dad back in the day. How time flies. Alright, well, the next game on my list, Solar Ash, was one of the few games on this list that immediately caught my attention when I first saw it. I, of course, immediately added it to my wish list and then didn't look at it again for 4 months. Did I mention I have a really large backlog? But when I watched the trailer, I knew I was going to love it, because games with fluid, action-oriented movement systems are some of my favorites. It's one of the main reasons why I'm enjoying the new Call of Duty so much. But this game was so much more than Call of Duty. Actually, you know what this game reminds me of? Sonic. Classic 3D Sonic, like Sonic Adventure 2 Battle Sonic. Back when Sonic was good. Kids these days, they don't know what they're missing. I haven't actually played any of the new Sonic games, but there's something so fun and entertaining about sliding, sprinting, grappling, grinding rails, dodging enemy attacks, all while strategizing your next 3 moves to get close to an enemy's weak point. It's like a crazy dance where the punishment for failure is insta-death. These type of games walk a fine line between difficulty and fun. Solar Ash was no exception. I raged at every boss fight at least once, because you have to do things perfectly, and I mean perfectly, with very precise precision. Perfect, precise precision. Thankfully, the game's not just a bunch of boss fights. The movement system comes first, and it's the best part of the game, hands down. Solar Ash is the story of a void runner named Ray, a soldier of an advanced civilization who specializes in exploring black holes. When a massive black hole known as the Ultra Void threatens her home planet, she and her team must explore the Ultra Void in order to find a way to save everyone. Throughout this exploration, Ray learns about the various other civilizations who met in untimely demise within the gravitational confines of the Ultra Void. This focus on environmental storytelling allowed for some really unique lore moments that coupled really well with the deep themes and emotional narrative that closely tied Ray's fate to the fates of all the others who had come before. And I like cool world building, especially when it comes with sci-fi, science fiction, more like sign me up fiction, am I right? So needless to say, I really enjoyed this game. It was another great addition to the Annapurna interactive lineup, which has been honestly crazy over the past 10 years. Since 2015, they've published such incredible games like What Remains of Edith Finch, Gone Home, Outer Wilds, Kentucky Route Zero, and The Artful Escape, just to name a few. These are all incredible gaming experiences that, thanks to Game Pass, I've been able to experience these past few years. Unfortunately, the entire Annapurna team resigned in late 2024 over disputes with their parent company. So, who knows if we'll ever get this level of quality again. But if this is where Annapurna, as we know it, ends, it was a pretty dang good run. But thankfully, Annapurna isn't the only quality publisher out there. Devolver Digital has also a long history of releasing incredible gaming experiences. Now, much of the Devolver catalog doesn't appeal to me, but occasionally I will find a gem that does. Greece was that gem this year. Greece is a prime example of games as art. It doesn't focus on providing a unique gameplay loop or creative mechanics. It doesn't try to sell you skins or loot boxes. It doesn't collect and sell your personal data on the black market. Greece does one thing and does it very well. Strives to induce emotions in the player by telling a beautiful tale about grief and loss through the lens of a video game. And I certainly shed a few tears while playing this game. At its core, it is a pretty simple platformer. There's a couple of minor twists on this concept throughout, but primarily it's a traditional platforming game. There's no real challenge because it's impossible to fail. It's as close to a walking simulator as you can get without being a walking simulator. I guess it's kind of more of a jumping simulator than the relax in gameplay. It picks up for an emotional narrative and a beautiful watercolor art style that uses color theory to enhance the story. Since Greece wasn't a very long game, I missed to talk specifics because I don't want to spoil anything. So there's not much I can say about it other than go check it out and experience it for yourself. You won't regret it. And now, it is time for some rapid fire honorable mentions. Another action-adventure game, this time heavily inspired by Alice in Wonderland. A girl falls into a magic mirror and has to save a fantasy kingdom overrun by an evil queen, otherwise known as a typical Saturday night. It was a fun little adventure game. It wasn't too difficult and had really beautiful use of pixel art with 3D assets. I definitely enjoyed it while I played it, but it wasn't super memorable, so there's not much to say here. A first-person exploration game where you play as an archaeologist looking for the remnants of an AI named Grace that brought humanity into a golden age, but then disappeared mysteriously. Along the way, you solve puzzles with the help of AI assistants, each representing a piece of Grace's personality. Their dialogue is easily the best part of the game. Second to the dialogue is the incredible retro Art Deco 1950s-esque brutalist world design, similar to games like Fallout and BioShock. The unique take on this architectural style made what was a fairly straightforward walking game into an incredibly interesting and immersive experience. Imagine you had a magical giant paintbrush and could paint anything. But instead of painting anything, you had to paint to save the world. That's Chicory, a colorful tale in a nutshell. This paintbrush is known as the Brush. Original, I know. It is controlled by the wielder, a powerful being who's responsible for keeping color in the world. And you are their janitor, an anthropomorphic dog who dreams of becoming the wielder. So when you find the brush just sitting on the ground one day, what do? Steal it, of course. Take your destiny into your own hands. Slay the wielder. Become the wielder, or something like that. This brush offers a unique puzzle-solving mechanic. When you color in the world, it allows you to activate powers that you acquired on your journey. The game also has a lot of narrative depth for a bog-standard adventure RPG. It regularly delves into the darker side of topics such as self-doubt and self-criticism without being corny or dismissive. Asking, what does it truly mean to be the person that everyone depends on? This game was definitely one of the most memorable games of the year for me, and it was also the one I was most surprised by, since I typically don't enjoy 2D isometric adventure games. A puzzle game where you use depth perception to resize objects in an infinite looping world. The objects are special in their own way because they represent pieces of romantic relationships whose story is told bit by bit as you acquire key memories. The resizing mechanic was a bit frustrating at times, especially when you have to navigate the world as the objects continually grow and shrink. But it was an extremely unique mechanic, and the story, though mainly serving as a foundation for the gameplay, was very heartfelt. And right now, I'm realizing that most of these games had some sort of unique and engaging gameplay mechanic, just one main one that they relied on throughout the game. Maybe that's why I liked them so much. Another great example of games as art. It only has two traditional game mechanics, dialogue choices, and cooking food. But this game tells a heartfelt story of a family immigrating from India to Canada and the struggles they face in their day-to-day lives. It's very emotionally raw, and it highlights the struggle that many people face in finding their true identity when moving to a new country. Close to the Sun is another first-person exploration game set in an early 1900s steampunk world. Compared to Return to Grace, this game focuses more on the combat and horror elements, but still scratches that itch of retrofuturism that I really love. As Rose Archer, you go to rescue your sister Ada, who is stuck on Helios, Nikola Tesla's ocean liner built for the brightest scientific minds to invent an experiment to their heart's content. As soon as you make it onto Helios, though, you realize that something has gone terribly wrong. What has gone wrong, you might ask? Well, that's a lot of spoilers. But basically, it boils down to a bunch of physics mumbo-jumbo and wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff that all wants to kill you. Think of the whole game like an episode of Doctor Who. Specifically, the 10th Doctor. I do love me some David Tennant. Now, I'm sure that sounds like a setup for an incredible game, and there's definitely a lot of strengths. Intriguing world, interesting story, steampunk goodness. But unfortunately, there's a lot of notable weaknesses. The gameplay mechanics aren't very good. It's very clunky. There are performance issues everywhere. The scenery is fascinating, but the actual graphics quality itself is lacking. And it really doesn't do anything new or exciting. It's basically a walking simulator with an occasional chase sequence. But I'm a sucker for this kind of steampunk retro sci-fi, no matter what flavor. So unless the game was literally unplayable, I was never going to hate it. And if you like BioShock and want a taste of that experience, then would you kindly play this game? I think you'll appreciate its charm. Last, but certainly not least, here's the Game Pass games I started, but I didn't finish this year. maybe I'll actually sit down and play these in 2025. Maybe, just maybe, they will make next year's list. At this point, who knows? But there is one thing I do know. Remember that wherever you are, whenever you are, whatever you are, whoever you are, be the best you that you can be. Be the best you that you can be. Thank you for joining me for this Game Pass Games journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.